Hello, racers. This is Danny with Silver Horse RC. Just doing another video on how we can make our cars just a little bit faster, get around the track just a little bit more. We're all chasing that few hundredths of a second that make the difference between the fastest lap or winning the race. So bearings is definitely one of the items that can make a huge difference on how well the car is performing and how quickly we get around the track. And I don't think it can be understated that it's an item that we need to pay close attention to every time we put the car down on the track. And some of my tips I know are not necessarily groundbreaking, but sometimes it's good to be reminded of the things that we should all be doing on a regular basis every time we put the car on the track. And what I try and do is I try and run through a checklist every time I put the car down on the track for a race. And I'm not always successful at getting it accomplished, but oftentimes it does help me catch something small before I put the car on the track, and it certainly helps me do some better laps. So if you don't have some kind of regular checklist for yourself, maybe that's a good idea and one of the improvements that you can make that'll help your overall race. And here's some things that we can talk about with our bearings specifically that can certainly help. So hopefully I'm not gonna break the internet here by pulling out something that you probably can't find anymore, but I am old school RC, and I've been doing this for a while. And this is something that I've had for a very, very long time. And honestly, I'm not sure that you can get them anymore. Um, and I'm just showing this as an example of, but there are other options for cleaning bearings. This is called a bearing blaster. And you would drop the bearing into the bottom here, and it would go all the way in the bottom. You can kind of see that in the camera. And this would go right on top of it, an aluminum piece with a point on the end, so it would go straight onto the bearing. And you'd close this up, and then you'd get your motor cleaner, electric cleaner, whatever cleaner that you want to use, blast it through this end over here. It would blow through the bearing, and all the dirt and everything would come out this side. Now, I was using this when I was running two-wheel drive dirt off-road. It was almost necessary to do with bearings on a regular basis. Well, our little mini Z cars aren't quite collecting as much dirt, but they're also very, very small, and it doesn't take much dirt to be able to slow the bearing down. So soaking the bearings definitely works, blowing them clean. Any way you're going to get the dirt and debris out of them is certainly going to make a big difference in how they perform. So I'm not going to walk you through all the different steps. I'm sure many of you have seen the different cleaners are out there. But soaking them, as long as you're making sure that you're oiling them once you clean them again, is going to have a big impact. I'm currently using the oil from MWX Performance, from Marcus, and it seems to be working pretty darn good. I really like the way that it goes into the bearing. You use very, very little of it, and it doesn't take much and goes a long, long way. It really does help the bearing glide along. So you can take a look at that as far as some kind of oil after the fact of cleaning. One of the areas that I really feel like the way I see people installing bearings to the track and using their tools, I see people digging the bearings out with all sorts of tools, whether it be just a screwdriver or whatever's on hand. And I see them punching down from one side and just smacking down at the bearing and knocking it out. Well, I mean, if you're not worried about your bearings lasting too long or not scrubbing off a lot of speed, maybe that's not a really good idea. So this is a bearing tool. It just happens to be a Silver Horse RC bearing tool with the cool little horse head on the handle. Makes it work better, of course. And this is made to actually install and remove bearings. And what it's doing is applying equal pressure all the way around the bearing when you go to remove it, rather than kind of digging it out of there, which makes a huge difference. And then when you go back to install it, of course, it's going in with even pressure all the way around, and you're not damaging the bearing in the process of. So this is the way that you're going to actually make your bearings last a long time and know when you're installing them and getting ready to go back on the track that they're not going to be creating a problem for you right from the get-go just because you've happened to bend the shield or bend the case for it and then end up having a problem and it doesn't work the way it's supposed to. So use some kind of bearing tool, bearing installer when both removing and putting them back in. That's going to help a whole bunch. Now, some of the other tips are just might be really quite obvious, but don't over tighten your bearings either. I just grabbed this car. This is nothing special. I just grabbed this car out of the box. And just to get an idea, and I'm just not gonna over tighten, but I'm just gonna turn them down just a little bit. And obviously that wheel's not gonna turn at all. I'm going to loosen it up just a little bit and get a little more spin out of it. And if nobody's ever kind of gone through about how to tighten these bearings, you can go down to about where it stops and then start backing it out. And you can see when I'm spinning it now, it's really not going very far. And these are not great bearings that are in here. They're just some kind of bearing that's got. And now they're spinning a little bit more free. So I'm just literally turning the handle just a tiny little tick to get it to where the bearings are rolling free, but we don't want this to have too much play in it either. So you just barely turning it until the bearing gets the most free. And then it's not a bad idea just to take it back the other direction and make sure that it's just running as free as it can. Now, that bearing is not terrible. It doesn't feel too bad, but it certainly does have a little bit of rolling resistance. So it could just be a little dirty or lower quality bearings, but it's not terrible. I'm not going to go through the process of taking a differential out at this point, but removing the differential out and checking those, removing the pinion you could also do, or moving the motor away from the spur gear so that you can spin the rear axle and feel the bearings inside there to make sure they're spinning free and loose so that they're not causing any friction in them too. And that can rob you of some precious time as you go around the track. So checking that as well. So if you can move the motor away or get it loose, either that or pulling it out and then checking the bearings that way makes a big difference. So get the car adjusted right. Make sure the bearings are all in here that are in good shape and clean. And then it's not a bad idea to run a high quality bearing. These are Silver Horse RC chrome steel bearings that come in a nice little tube. And if you're looking for the best quality bearing, these are a Silver Horse RC. They come in these cool little nitrous bottles. These are actually the ceramic bearings, and they are absolutely fantastic as well as the steel bearings. They're just almost zero rolling resistance. So I'm just going to show you the use. I'm going to change out this bearing inside here right now. That's got one of our steel bearings. This is a chrome steel. I'm going to install on this tire here, and I'm going to let the tire do the talking for just how good these bearings are. And I'm going to make sure that I don't switch cameras on you or anything, so there's nobody thinking, oh my gosh, there's no way it went that long. So I'm just going to let it roll there and see if I get the camera to focus a little bit better on the tire. It's not really wanting to focus better on the tire, so just going to let it roll. And these again are the Silver Horse RC bearings. We have them right now with the MR03 kits, and we'll have them soon for Atomics and GL Racing, GLRs, and those setups too. And they'll be on the website here shortly. And as you can see, it has next to no rolling resistance at all. It's still going to go round and round and round and keep on going. These are very high quality bearings. And we finally stop. So do your maintenance on your bearings. Give them an inspection regularly. Get your pre-race checklist in place. Use a bearing tool if you don't use anything else. And don't over tighten them when you put them back together. And also maybe take a look at buying some Silver Horse RC bearings so you can take some precious time off your laps. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again for the next video.